I'd like to welcome you guys to this week's report. We've got some little bit of weather we're dealing with this week here. It's Thursday afternoon. Looks like it's just getting ready to rain here in Long Beach. Weather forecast looks a little iffy. I can't really tell what's going to happen here. We've got a couple different forecasts from the different apps I follow, but there's definitely a weather window in there on Saturday for sure. Maybe Sunday early, maybe not, depending on where you go. Me trying to predict this weather, it's changing enough that it would be, just guesswork at best. So I'm going to recommend if you're heading out anywhere this weekend, definitely take a good look at the weather forecast before you head out on the water. And just know that if it's raining and it's calm, it's probably going to be windy afterwards. So we don't look like we're going to get too much wind. So Thursday night, tonight it's supposed to rain, a little bit of wind tomorrow. Saturday looks nice. Sunday looks rainy and then windy. But we'll have to see how that goes. Yeah, so just check the weather forecast before heading out on your own boat. If you're going on a sport boat, just understand if you go somewhere far like San Nick or out there where the tuna are biting or anything like that, it's probably going to be a little bit rough out there. Chances are. Anyway, let's head to the map and see what's happening. So starting up north, last week I talked about the fact that I was probably going to run up and try and fish San Miguel on Friday, which I did. We definitely had some wind on Thursday night into Friday morning, but we timed it right, kept it out of the forecast. The Santa Anas were blown. We knew once they blew out it wouldn't be bad. So left my house at 3:30 in the morning, got gas, drove to Santa Barbara Harbor up there. Got there to the harbor mouth about 15 minutes before it got light enough to see past the bow, and we waited for the get a little bit light because a lot of lobster pots up there. But then we had a fairly unremarkable and somewhat bumpy ride out to San Miguel. It's about 45 miles where we went, I think, and we were still able to run about 30 knots. It was just that offshore wind had blown all night, and the residual wind wave was still there, even though it wasn't windy when we went. Got to the island, a lot of water movement up there. Current was raging uphill. Surprisingly 60-degree water up that way. So I thought it'd be colder, but a lot of big swell, a lot of sit-up areas. If you haven't fished San Miguel, on the weather side, with the front side of the island, there's some rocks that actually stick up out of the water in spots, and some very shallow reefs that comes out, a couple hundred, 300 feet up to, 50, 60 feet. And while that can make for an interesting sea state, as long as you're familiar with the topographical chart in your area. I'm running the CMAP one on my my unit now. It shows you exactly what the depth is. It shows you danger spots, things like that. So going in an area where there's actually rocks that are breaking and boiling and stuff, I took a look around, waited a while, got a feel for what the area was looking like. It's just like when you're fishing shallow for calicos, you watch an area for 5 or 10 minutes before you put your boat in somewhere where you can't easily get it out. And by half an hour in, I was pulling up in the downhill drift side, so I drifted away from these spots and actually casting lures right up into the breaking rocks that are out there. And we had pretty phenomenal fishing. The reds, first spot of the day, we stopped, had our limits of reds in less than half an hour. We left the harbor at probably 6:15, and we had limits of reds by 8:15, and kept our limits of reds, kept our limits of copper rockfish. Now the problem up there is there's so many reds and so much copper rockfish, it's really hard to fish for anything else. And we drove around quite a bit looking for areas where we could catch lings and things like that. And since we're fishing so shallow, which is nice, we spent most of the day in, let's say 70 to 150 feet of water, most of it less than 100 foot. So basically everything we're catching is releasing really well. We have a descending device on the boat, but half the time you don't even need it because they don't blow up when you bring them up in a shallow water like that. But what was interesting, we got some really big picacho as well. I mean, 10, 11, 12 pound fish they looked like. They were just giants. I've never caught them that shallow. Catch them like 120 feet of water. Thought they were big lingcod, but we definitely released those. But everything we got was on that 8-inch MC slug that I fished on a lead head, 3-ounce lead head. I've talked about the trap hook one I use, but the reds were biting so well that we had to stop using that because they'd bite that lead head on the sink, and they'd hook themselves. So you couldn't even get down to the bottom to try and catch a lingcod or anything else. So we had to switch to a regular style lead head, so that if you got bit on the sink by a red, you could just sit there and eventually they'll just spit the lure out if you don't set the hook. We ended up with quite a few legal lings, but we only kept 4 because we were hoping for some bigger ones. Bigger fish we got were nice ones. Got some that were, 24 inches, stuff like that. But I mean, it's really good fishing up there. And the problem is, once you limit out on reds and coppers and lings, you still have quite a bit of room in your limit, 5 more fish each. And we try and catch the Johnny bass, which are the olive rockfish. I think they're the tastiest of the things that remain. And I'm not fishing with bait, so I'm not going to catch a sheephead or a whitefish or things like that. It's very irregular. Not that those count against the rockfish numbers, but I don't go up there for that. So we went out and figured out that we caught some Johnny bass up shallow. Got a real nice one on a light crankbait rod, actually, with a little 6-inch slug. And then we found a spot a little bit deeper, and about 120 feet they were biting the jig pretty good, and we finished up our limits with those. But last stop during the day, beautiful ride home. If you're hesitant to go up somewhere like that because it's so far, we pulled out of the driveway at 3:30 in the morning. We were back in the driveway at 3:30 in the afternoon, and probably caught, 100 plus fish in the time that we were up there, and just had beautiful weather out the whole way. I think we only saw 1 or 2 other boats the entire day up there, but yeah, we've got another month of that before they shut it down in December for 3 months. So if we get another weather window, I might head up there, but keep an eye out for it. Look for a little bit of Santa Ana winds, and that's usually a pretty good bet. If you get a couple days that you can get up there and do some fun fishing. But if you're going to head out anywhere rock fishing, always look at your chart ahead of time and figure out some areas that you want to go to, because if you don't, you get out there and you're kind of lost as to what depth range, things like that. So I'll normally figure out the depth I want to fish. If I'm going to fish all the way up there, I want to fish shallow. So I'll figure out 4 or 5 areas that are in depth range I want to fish, and I'll hit the highest percentage spot, or what I think is probably the highest percentage spot first, and then move around, look for those things. And once you figure out what's going on, you can limit out pretty easily, usually, with rockfish. But sport boats up there doing good as well. I know the boats out of Santa Barbara, the Coral Sea Stardust, those boats have been loading up on nice reds and lings, whitefish, sheephead, all that stuff. The boats that have Ventura doing good as well. I know the Aloha Spirit had limits on their lingcod trip on Monday again. I checked the weather. I don't think I'd want to be up there on a skip this weekend, but there might be some windows if you guys are dying to go. I'd wait for a better weather window though. Heading down the coast, not a lot of coverage anywhere. Had some friends go to San Clemente Island over the weekend and have good bass fishing, good mediocre to good bass fishing. And that's really it from there. Most of the sport boats are tied to the dock, or doing, like the Gale Force is doing their lobster stuff. I know the Pursuit and Native Son, they're all in the yard. Victory's fishing rockfish along the coast. So it's kind of a quiet time of year for sport boats. So more of a private boat thing. I know Vaughn Podmore from Salty Fly Guide Service has been running the cat and having really good bonita fishing over there. So if you want to go catch a bonita, Catalina might be your a good option. And it should be decent weather this weekend, at least on Saturday over there. Same with Clemente. The only other real news we have is the bluefin are still biting, and they have slid out to the Tanner and Cortez Banks area. The fleet kind of lost track of the fish while they were in during the week last week, and they looked all over the place for them over the weekend, and everybody struck out. I guess a few boats found, or at least one boat found fish at Tanner midweek. I know the Oceanside 95 is running this Friday night out of San Diego. I don't know who else is running, but if you want to go out, there's not going to be a lot of boats available, so you got to probably call around and find a trip that's going. But yeah, there's still a good chance to catch a tuna out there, and the nice thing about fishing out there, you can fish rockfish and stuff. If tuna aren't biting, or once you limit out on those, you can go load up on other stuff. If you're going to do that, go Friday night. That's your best weather window. I don't know that I'd go Sunday or Monday. I don't know if they'd even have trips then, but yeah, we're getting to that time of year, so get out there, have some fun, go fish for whatever, and don't expect a whole lot, and you probably won't be disappointed. Still plenty of good fishing options available. It's just no coverage. So that's kind of where we're at. I hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving, and I'll see you next week.